Today we're going to learn about the skeletal system. You need to have your PE workbook with you and something to write with. Please turn to page 41. Turn to page 41 in your workbooks. At the bottom of page 41 there's a knowledge check. I want you to reflect on your anatomy from level 1 last year about the bones in the body and brainstorm as many bones that make up the skeleton as possible and write them in the space below in the workbook. Name as many bones as you can recall from your last year's work. Right, I just want you to turn this video off now. Just pause it while you do that, and then when you have done it, come back to the video. Now turn to page 42 in your workbooks and try and fill in as many of the names of the bones that you can on that page, putting in the anatomical name plus as well as the common name that you would know the bone as. So complete the anatomical name and the common name for every bone. Once you've done that, move on to the next slide and to move on in the video and mark what you've done and complete it. We're going to start off by labelling the hands and the feet. The bones at the end of the hand and the bones at the end of the feet are all called the same. They're phalanges. Those are the things that you can wiggle at the end of your hands, and your toes that you can wiggle at the end of your feet. Next, while we're on the feet, we've got metatarsals. And those are the ones just up from the phalanges. So they come in just they come in just up from the phalanges. And in the hands, it's metacarpals. Next, we've got carpals in the hand, that's around the wrist area, and tarsals in the ankle, in the foot area. So what you need to remember here, the difference between the two is the word carpals and tarsals. The feet are tarsals, metatarsals and phalanges, and the hands are carpals, metacarpals and phalanges. The phalanges are the same in both of them. Now we've got the bones in the leg. First we've got the tibia, which is the bone at the front of the leg, and the bone at the back of the leg is called the fibula. Goes to the back of the leg. And the longest bone in the body is the femur. So we've got the femur, the tibia at the front, and the fibula at the back. So as to help you remember that, I've just put an F beside the tibia and a B for back beside the fibula. Next we have the kneecap, which we call the patella, and that's that little bone in the front at the knee there, the one that can wiggle around. Moving up the body to the arms, we've got the ulna, the radius, and the humerus. The ulna and radius lie side by side in the forearm, and the humerus is the large bone in the upper arm. The easy way to remember which bone is the radius and the ulna is to stand with your palms facing forward, and the radius is on the outer part of the arm. Then next is the ulna, and then next is your midline. So it spells rum. So the R is for radius on the outer side, U is ulna, which is next to the radius and between the radius and the midline of the body. That's an easy way you can remember which bone is the radius and which is the ulnar bone. Up from the humerus then sits in a ball and socket joint, which leads us up to the clavicle, which is the small collarbone in the front here that you can feel in the front. That's it there as well. I'll just take that right round to there. And then the other bone is on your back, which doesn't show very well in my skeleton, but you can see it in the little photograph I've got here, and that is the scapular bone on your back. If you put your hand on your back and you feel that flat bone on your back, that when you actually put your arm back behind your back, it feels like a little wing, that is the scapular bone there. So we've got our clavicle and our scapula. Next we have our hip bone, which we're going to call the ilium bone. There we are there, it takes it across to that point. That's the hip bone, and we're calling it the ilium. Now we're moving on to the rib cage, where we have the sternum, and we have the ribs that protect your lungs and heart. So that's the sternum and the ribs. You know the ribs of that, and that's just the name, that's the anatomical name for them as well. Now we've got the vertebrae, which hold us up and help us stand up. If we didn't have the vertebra, we would not be able to stand up. We would just be in a crumpled heap. So there's the vertebra, which is our backbone. Lastly, we've got the cranium, which is your skull and protects all your brain matter. Oopsie, mustn't move that. Oopsie, we don't want to move him either. Get it back in the right spot. Almost. Oops. There we go. Right. Let me get him right. So here we've got the cranium, which goes to the brain, and that is what protects all your brain cells. So now I would like you to go to page 42 in your workbooks. Turn to page 42 in your workbooks, and you've got skeletons there, two skeletons, one facing forward and one from a side view. And I'd like you to do your best to complete naming all the bones in the skeleton below in that diagram there. So I'd like that done by tomorrow, please. And we'll go over it in class to check that you have managed to complete it correctly. You can actually use this PowerPoint now to make your corrections after you've had a go at doing it without looking. See if you can do it without looking. The next thing we're going to be looking at now is on page 41 in your workbooks. If you just turn back to page 41, the human skeleton. The body is made up with 206 bones, make up the human skeleton, and they've all got really important functions that we just have to be familiar with. The first one is protection of the underlying tissues and organs. For example, the brain is protected by the cranium. Next is storage and supply. The skeleton has a good store of minerals such as calcium, and bone marrow, which is inside the hollow of some bones, supplies the body with red blood cells. Skeleton allows movement. Where two or more bones meet, they form joints. Combine the bones with muscles, and we have the production, we get movement. So if we combine muscles and bones, we produce movement. And that is what we're primarily concerned with, is how muscles interact with bones to generate movement. Shape is the next basic function. The shape of individual bones and their size gives us our unique shape and personal features. And the last of the 5 basic functions is support. The bones give muscles a place to attach to, the muscles can attach to the bones, and this allows support. So bones give muscles a place to attach to allow movement. If the bones didn't have anywhere to, if the muscles didn't have anywhere to attach to, they wouldn't be able to lift and move the bones so that we could walk and move and play our sport. So if you could complete that, fill in each of those 5 basic points on page 41. Have that complete by tomorrow. Make sure you know and understand this. Have any questions that you might want to ask ready for tomorrow, and we'll be ready to go in class with a wee test on this. Thank you for listening to this today.